Why does the left crush free speech? One, because they can. And second, because if free speech is allowed, the entire leftist balloon, empty, vacuous, nothing inside but hot air, explodes right there. All right, I saw this article by the great Dennis Prager, one of the real thinkers of our time. And he talks about this totalitarian streak on the left. And the title sums up his article beautifully. And it's worth your time. It'll be in the show notes, the newsletter. Check it out. Why the Left Has to Suppress Free Speech by Dennis Prager. So he talks about first something I've warned about often, that if you were just a minor student of history, if you've read a Charlie Brown encyclopedia as a kid, you would know that pushing the beach ball underwater and trying to silence your political opponents like leftist totalitarians do has never ended in anything other than death and destruction. Ever. It is a disaster for humankind. Prager addresses it in the opening paragraph. This is a short piece. It's not one of those 11,000 word manifestos. It's probably not more than 700 words, but it's worth your time. Prager says, hey, let us begin with this fact. The left always suppresses speech, always. Since Lenin and the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia in 1917, there's been no example of the left in control and not crushing dissent. None. This is what they do, the Bolsheviks and the left. He says there's one important difference between liberals and the left. Liberalism and liberals believe in free speech. He's talking about real liberals, not the fake ones we have now. He says the present leftist threat to freedom in America, the greatest threat to freedom in American history, listen to this, is made possible because liberals think they have more to fear from conservatives than from the left. Liberals do not understand that the left regards liberals as their useful idiots. Basically what I suggested to you yesterday, that every totalitarian movement in human history where they've crushed dissent, crushed freedom, imprisoned people for their political beliefs, killed and tortured people, has always used useful idiots to get there. I can't recommend to you enough the Solzhenitsyn books, The Gulag Archipelago and The First Circle. They're long reads, but they're worth your time. Folks, I haven't finished both books, but I've gotten through most of it. And it is some of the most disturbing material you'll ever read about how the Soviet Union did this exact thing. The real radicals, the left, uses people who claim to be liberals in the media and otherwise as useful idiots to march towards totalitarianism, and they play on because they're too stupid to figure it out. You know, liberals, Chuck Todd, Brian Stelter, all of those morons, and then Rachel Maddow. The history is clear. The path we're on is dangerous. Here's the second part of Prager's absolutely fantastic piece when he talks about the useful idiot crowd. Basically, universities, the media, and Hollywood. Check this out. The left controls universities. No dissent allowed there. The left controls nearly every, air quotes, news medium. Little or no dissent allowed there, not even in the news section, and certainly not in the opinion sections. The left controls Hollywood. No dissents allowed in Hollywood. That's why we have cancel culture. The silencing and firing of anyone who publicly dissents from the left, and even publicly, is no longer necessary. The National Association of Realtors just announced that if you express dissenting views on race especially, in private, you may be fined and lose your membership in the organization, which effectively ends your career as a realtor. You didn't believe me in the beginning when I said they're coming after your job next? You thought I was kidding? It's always a conspiracy theory until it happens, and it's not a theory, but it's a conspiracy. It's no longer theoretical when it happens, right? It's not a theory when it actually happens. So the title of the piece was Why the Left Must Suppress Free Speech. So Dan, get to the why. Why? Well, Dennis says something I've said to you often. Joe, I think you can vouch for me on this one. What have I always told you about the left? That the left never runs on ideas because their ideas are never backed up by any data, facts, or reality. Their ideas are ridiculous. So what does the left do to win elections? The same thing Biden did. They just tell you the other guy's a racist. They don't say, that's why the media propagandizes and runs with that, because the media understands if they actually start to ask the left questions, like, Joe, did you take a payoff from China? Joe, has hiking taxes ever worked? Joe, has totalitarian free speech ever worked? They're going to get crushing of free speech ever worked? They're going to get an answer they don't like. So what do? They just say, the other guy's a racist. Vote for us. We'll protect you. That's their only strategy. Have I not said that to you for 5, 6, 7 years now? Well, Dennis Prager, a much smarter man than me, says it more eloquently than I can in the final portion of his speech, of his piece, which is worth your time. Digest, chew the cud on every single bit of this. Tattoo it on your brain. He says the answer, though the left won't acknowledge it, is that the left fears dissent, and they do so for good reason. Leftism is essentially a giant balloon filled with nothing but hot air. Therefore, no matter how big the balloon, the Democrat Party, the New York Times, Yale University, all it takes is a little pin to burst it. Leftism is venerated by intellectuals, but there's little intellectual substance to leftism. It's a combination of doctrine and emotion. You want the proof? Those with intellectual depth do not stifle dissent. They welcome it. That is why universities are so opposed to conservatives coming to speak on campus. One articulate conservative can undo years of left-wing indoctrination in a 1-hour talk or a Q&A. Prager says, I know this from personal experience on campuses. You can too. Watch the speeches given by any conservative allowed to speak on a campus. You ever watch the Dinesh D'Souza, Milton Friedman videos on college campuses as leftist indoctrinated college kids for the first time hear the truth? You ever see the eyeballs? You ever see the faces? Do you ever see the rage by some who for the first time rage out at Dinesh or others because they realize their entire lives are a lie? The entire leftist balloon, enormous, the size of the state of Texas. Or maybe California is a better analogy. Burst with one little pin. The house of cards falls apart because everything you believed was fake. Marxism's a path to genuine equity, the new buzzword. High taxes are a way to save the economy. Public schools are going to educate your kids better than your own choices in education. Governments can run healthcare better than doctors and patients. All of those ideas are farcical, not backed up on any data. Have literally killed people. In the case of Marxism, hundreds of millions. What must it be like to be a leftist on a college campus, told all that nonsense for years, not backed up or based on any fact or data, and you have one conservative speaker in a 10-minute Q&A that bursts it all and your whole life falls apart? Why does the left crush free speech? One, because they can. And second, because if free speech is allowed, the entire leftist balloon, empty, vacuous, nothing inside but hot air, explodes right there.
You just heard Dan Bongino.